Desi Arnaz held the pen above the contract without lowering it. Across the table, the network lawyer smiled like this was already settled. Behind the cameras, the studio audience laughed, soft, warm, rehearsed. Desi smiled back, still thinking the laugh belonged to the show. He even angled the contract so the camera wouldn't catch the fine print. Then the laugh broke apart. One voice stopped too fast. Another kept going too long. A producer in the front row covered his mouth and whispered to no one. The whisper didn't need words to spread. Desi glanced down at the signature line. The room noticed. And the room began to listen for what he would do next. This would end one of two ways. Legend, or disgrace that felt like death, and the room wanted him to choose in public. Television was new money wearing old power. Studios sold joy, but they enforced it like ownership. Networks promised airtime, sponsors promised cash, and quiet men promised stability. Hollywood did not feel governed. It felt claimed. The buildings remembered who could be removed without a scene. A show could be paused for reasons no one wrote down. A comedian could be too difficult without ever raising his voice. A producer could lose a job and never be told where it went. In this city, a contract was never paper. It was a leash, handed over with clean hands. And everyone pretended the leash was a gift. Desi understood that danger rarely announced itself. In Havana he watched authority arrive with documents and polite smiles. He had seen families lose everything with no warning. He had watched names shorten conversations and close doors. He learned early that the loud man is easy to punish. The quiet man is harder, so the pressure gets quieter too. When he came north, the accents changed. The pressure did not. He learned to read rooms the way some men read weather. The first warning came as a schedule update. A runner clipped a note to Desi's rehearsal pages and walked away. No signature. One line typed alone. Review meeting after the run-through. Mandatory. At the bottom, bring your contract. Desi slid the note into his pocket without a reaction. Later he left it beneath an ashtray and let it sit there, unread. A few hours after that, a cue card arrived with a new line added. It looked like a harmless punchline. It wasn't. It was personal. The audience laughed at rehearsal. Desi laughed too, assuming the laugh was harmless. He did not yet hear the edge in it. He told himself it was nerves in the room, not a message. A stagehand asked if he was going. Desi said, "Not today." The stagehand didn't nod. He looked past Desi, counting who had heard the refusal. Then he walked away like he had been told not to speak again. The second warning arrived in the hallway, disguised as advice. A man Desi hadn't met walked beside him, matching his pace. "You're doing well," the man said softly. "Don't let paperwork turn into misunderstanding." They passed the call board. One crew name had been crossed out in red pencil. No reason written beside it. Desi kept walking, but his eyes returned to the crossed-out name. He recognized it. A quiet grip. A reliable man. The stranger noticed Desi noticing it. He didn't comment. He didn't have to. Desi stopped at the sound booth door. "What do they want?" he asked. The man's eyes stayed on Desi's hands. "Just your name," he said. "And your silence after." Desi replied, "I'll read it tomorrow." The man didn't smile. He only said, "Tomorrow disappears fast." Desi entered the booth and closed the door. The glass reflected his face back at him. For the first time, the reflection looked like a man being watched. And he wondered who had decided the booth was not private anymore. After that, the studio became careful. Not quiet, careful. Desi's phone rang at odd hours. When he answered, no one spoke, but the line stayed open, long enough to make him listen to his own breathing. A new folder appeared on his chair. Someone else's name on the cover, crossed out in pencil. Inside, a blank signature page, as if surrender was all that mattered. A rehearsal tape vanished, then returned rewound to one pause in Desi's voice. Someone wanted him to hear his own hesitation and correct it. A wardrobe assistant stopped calling him Desi. She switched to Mr. Arnaz, like distance could protect her. Crew members stopped standing between Desi and doorways. They began to watch exits like exits had sides now. In the cafeteria, two executives sat at a table that wasn't theirs. They didn't eat. They watched the room and left when Desi arrived. As they stood, one of them brushed past Desi and said, almost kindly, "Don't make this messy." No one could prove anything, and that meant it could keep tightening. At rehearsal, a line was fed to Desi the wrong way on purpose. The audience laughed too hard, too early. Desi laughed with them, still not hearing the blade under the joke. A rumor slid through the crew, the network was adjusting control. No one said the word takeover. They said standards, because standards sounded harmless. Desi noticed the smiles change. They became smaller. They lasted longer. and they ended the moment he looked directly at them. That night, Desi's closest partner found him in the prop room. The door was left ajar, as if to remind them of witnesses. "We can step away," she said. "If you sign, they own the show. If you don't, they make you the problem." She didn't explain how. That was the threat. She leaned in. "Say yes once," she whispered, "then we leave on our terms." Desi shook his head. "Not anger. Decision. If you refuse again," she said, "they'll do it in front of everyone." Desi answered, "Good." She stared at him like she didn't recognize the choice. Then she nodded once, slowly, as if she understood what he was risking. And she said, "Then don't blink." Outside the prop room, footsteps passed and did not stop. The next day the invitation came on letterhead. Studio C Special Review. Required attendance. Studio C was too bright over the table and too dim over the seats. Executives filled the front rows. Sponsors sat beside them, faces calm on purpose. A union observer sat near the aisle and pretended to study the ceiling. He didn't want to be seen choosing a side. Security stood at the doors facing inward. A clerk placed legal pads at the table, one for Desi, two for them. 2 chairs waited on their side. 1 chair waited on his. The imbalance was the point. Desi walked down the aisle. People watched, then pretended they hadn't. Some looked at the floor like the floor could keep them safe. A warm-up man tried a light joke to loosen the room. No one laughed. The joke died where it stood. Desi reached the table and noticed the seating. He did not comment. He sat anyway, because refusing the chair would look like fear. A second chair on his side sat pushed back, unused, like help that had been removed. The contract folder waited in front of him, already opened, as if his arrival had been scheduled down to the second. A small microphone sat at the table edge, unplugged, like a reminder that recording was a privilege. The man without a badge didn't greet Desi. He opened the folder wider and pushed it forward with 2 fingers. Then he set an uncapped pen beside the signature line. "Ink ready, time ready." The audience laughed, one last time, like they recognized the trick. Desi still didn't, not fully. He thought the laugh was about him being late to the cue. The lawyer glanced back at the audience and let the laugh land. He didn't stop it. He used it. The laugh made Desi feel late to a joke he hadn't been told. Desi began to read. The laugh died in a clean cut. Silence replaced it so fast it felt unnatural. The room had been trained to do this. Switch on, switch off. A guard shifted at the door, blocking the clearest exit. The movement wasn't dramatic. It was practical. The man without a badge tapped the signature line once with the pen tip. Soft, like a clock. Desi felt the witnesses lean forward behind the cameras. Even the crew stopped pretending to work. He turned the page. Then he turned another, still believing the trap might be hidden deeper. And then he saw it. The clause that took the show from his hands with a single sentence. He felt his face stay calm while his mind caught up, a half step behind. That delay was what they were waiting for. Desi did not reach for the pen. He did not announce refusal. He turned the contract sideways and held it so the first rows could see it. He made the pressure visible before it could be explained away. He pointed to a blank margin. Then he pointed to the witnesses. "Add them," he said, voice level. "Add every name in this room." A ripple moved through the seats. Not outrage, calculation. A sponsor's representative shifted like he had been touched. An executive smiled once, then realized smiling was dangerous. The lawyer's pen hovered, then stopped. A throat cleared, then the sound died before it became a sentence. Desi slid the contract back across the table, but not toward freedom, toward exposure. "If my name goes here," he said, tapping the line, "then yours go above it." He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a rule that already existed. The man without a badge stared at Desi's face. He expected protest. He got stillness. Desi placed his rehearsal script on top of the contract, open. He didn't explain. He simply let the room see the demand sitting under the story. He looked past the lawyer to the seats, not pleading, counting witnesses. He made eye contact with one crew member for a single beat. The crew member looked away, as if loyalty had become dangerous. Silence stretched until it felt heavy enough to touch. No chair squeaked, no throat cleared. The man without a badge stared at the script, then at the audience. He realized the pressure had become public. In the third row, a sponsor's assistant started to stand. A hand pulled her back down by the sleeve. Not gentle, fast. The uncapped pen sat like a countdown, ink drying by the second. A trap that could not be denied later. Desi stayed still, he let everyone else own their movement. The lawyer glanced at the executives, waiting for permission to speak. No one gave it. They were trapped too, now. A pencil rolled off the clerk's pad and hit the floor. No one bent to pick it up. The man's fingers reached toward the pen, paused, then withdrew. For a moment, no one knew which way it would tip. And that uncertainty was the sharpest threat in the room. Desi felt the room's attention shift from him to them. That was the reversal. Quiet, but real. And he knew the next 10 seconds would decide whether the reversal held. The man leaned back and capped the pen with a quiet click. He did not smile. He did not apologize. He slid the contract into the folder as if it had never mattered. Then he pushed the folder toward Desi. Returned, not offered. Desi didn't take it right away. He let it sit there in front of witnesses, like a power force to blink. When he touched it, he didn't open it. He closed it tighter and set it down. The lawyer gathered his papers too quickly. His calm had cracks in it now, the kind that only appear when a room stops cooperating. Security eased away from the doors. Not because they were told, because the room told them. No handshake followed, no promise. Only a small nod, barely visible, that said one thing: I see the method. By the weekend, the story had already changed shape. People told it in diners, in make-up chairs, in quiet parking lots. Some said Desi refused to sign and the lawyer's hand shook. Others said Desi demanded names and the executives went pale. Some told it as a comedy that turned cold. They remembered the laughter. They remembered how fast it died. No one agreed on details. They agreed on the feeling. A room full of witnesses. A pen waiting like a trap. And Desi making the trap visible. Some versions said the pen stayed uncapped until it dried out. Some said the lawyer capped it too quickly, like he feared leaving proof. No one knew which was true. They only knew the room had gone quiet in the same place every time. Every retelling ended with the same pause. The sense that the room had learned a new rule. And every time the pause arrived, the teller lowered their voice. As if the room could still hear them. As if paper could still be slid forward, 1 inch at a time. This moment mattered because it changed what could be demanded quietly. Desi didn't destroy the system. He made it careful. Old Hollywood relied on private pressure. Desi moved the pressure into the light and held it there. He didn't win with force. He won with witnesses. He didn't sign to survive. He made them hesitate to own him. After that day, meetings happened with more chairs than before. People asked for minutes and copies, as if paper could protect them from memory. When someone wanted a private pressure, they used smaller rooms. And even in smaller rooms, they checked the doors twice. Hollywood stayed claimed. But for one long moment, the claim had to face witnesses.